Well, good morning and welcome back to the RangeMaster video cast. And as you know, we've been following this development of the social network that's been forming around esports is I think the way we tend to talk about it, although being 70 years old, I'm not sure I know quite how to talk about it, which is the point of these interviews. And ultimately, we'll want to talk about any kind of nagging pains that may come from being a better than average video game player. But our guest this morning is Issiac Torrero. Isaac's coming to us from Boise, Idaho. And Issiac has the distinction of having played on a collegiate esports team that competed nationally. And so we'll jump right into that and we'll get some background on that. So just for our audience, made up mostly of 20,000 physical and occupational therapists, Issiac, tell us, how old are you?
Oh yeah, I'm 23 currently.
23. And when did you start playing video games?
I mean, honestly, as early as I can remember, I would always watch my older brothers and uncles play, obviously. But I think I didn't legitimately start playing like a lot until maybe I was maybe like middle school, I guess, or elementary, because yeah, it was somewhere probably around there that I actually like was able to play consistently, like had a system of my own kind of thing. So probably either late elementary or early middle school is probably when it really began.
So if I said 10 to 12 years old, sound
That's,
about right?
yeah, that's fair.
Which means you've been playing for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it's definitely been a while for sure.
Okay. And when you're playing, well, I want to explore this college situation. So I played high school football. That's my whole
Okay.
concept of sports teams.
Yeah.
Um, at what point in your career here did people start playing uh, esports games in teams?
Well, I mean, I think esports itself has been around for longer than you might think, but I think it's only really starting to pick up a lot of steam more recently. But in terms of when esports began, the earliest I can think of is probably like 7 to 10 years ago, maybe would be like the earliest stages of it that I'm aware of. That would be like when you first had the really early esports organizations like FaZe and Optic and stuff. Those were like really popular uh, gaming organizations for Call of Duty back in the day. Um, and now they are like massive multi-million dollar organizations that have multiple teams and all of the different esports and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's only grown from there, but I think it's been around for, like I said, probably around 10 years at least, if not more.
All
So
right. So again, going back to my old school model, teams meant after school we practiced together for
yeah.
a couple of hours. When did you start um, forming a solid team and teammates? Um,
Yeah.
and how did you? What was your version of practice?
Yeah. So I I mean I played Rocket League mostly just for fun, genuinely for the longest time because it came out I think in 2015. So I had been playing it for maybe 3 or 4 years by the time Boise State basically put out an announcement saying like, "Hey, we're starting an esports like organization, kind of, and like it's going to be a varsity recognized sport, basically." And they were like, "So anybody who's like interested in these games," and they listed out the games that it was. It was like Overwatch, Rocket League, League of Legends, and a couple of others, I think. They were like, "Anybody who's interested in these, come to this auditorium at this time." And so I showed up and it was all being organized by this guy named Chris Haskell. I think he's the director of esports at Boise State right now. I think that's his title or something like that. And so, yeah, still to this day, he's still running it, but he organized the whole thing and basically put it together. And then it kind of grew from there. It was kind of informal at the beginning. especially for us because Rocket League itself wasn't hugely popular in comparison to like Overwatch or League of Legends, which League of Legends is like the biggest esport currently, or at least one of them for sure. And so for us, it was a little more informal. We had a group of, I think there was maybe like 10 students who had like shown up to that meeting and wanted to play. And so we kind of started formulating teams and just like practicing against each other to kind of get a feel of who like the best were, I guess, to actually like form our main team and then like our secondary team. And then we enrolled in a tournament called, well, it was organized by this organization called TESPA. They organize a lot of college esports tournament things. And so we signed up for one of their tournaments and participated in it. And we didn't do very well the very first year. But yeah, so that was like the first, I guess, like beginnings of esports at Boise State. And it kind of grew from there. So eventually we were able to actually get like a coach and actually have like consistent practices. I think we did it 3 or 4 times a week, and it was like a few hours at a time. Obviously just as much as we could practice basically while being in college as well. So yeah, it became definitely more of a regular thing with like legitimate practice and legitimate coaching and actually participating in tournaments. And like I mentioned to you yesterday, we were able to basically sign up for the same tournament that had happened a year earlier, the one I said we didn't do very well in. And we were able to qualify and basically be one of the top 32 teams in the nation at that time. So, yeah, I mean, that was a pretty cool experience. And I guess all of the consistent practice paid off in the end. But yeah, no, I mean, even for Boise State being so new to it, we were still kind of trying to formulate like consistent practices and kind of emulate the way that I guess traditional sports works, where you are working with a coach and like consistently trying to improve on like any of the skills that are needed to be good at the game. And so I think it worked out for us. As you could see, we definitely improved a lot. And then yeah, I think it just gets more intense the higher up you go in skill level. Like if you're an actual professional esports player, you're practicing and playing probably 8 or more hours a day at this game to ensure that you're like still at the top. Because if you're not, then there's going to be someone else who is practicing more than you, and they're going to become better than you, just like in any traditional sport. So it's pretty similar
Um,
in that way.
Let me let's go back here for just a second. Were you in high school or were you already in college when Boise State advertised?
I was already in college. I think I was in my it was like the beginning of my sophomore year, I think.
And were they offering scholarships or any help with your tuition?
Not at the time that I joined, because like I said, I joined like literally at the beginning of it, and they had like promises of scholarships. Like they were like, we're working on getting scholarships for you guys. I was on the team for a little over a year, probably like a year and a half before it turned into kind of a job more than like being fun, which is really what I play Rocket League for. And so I ended up kind of stepping away from it just to focus on school and get that finished. But I think it might have been last year that they actually rolled out their first actual scholarships. So some of the people that I know from the Rocket League team that are still playing, they actually do get scholarships for it now. So yeah, they rolled it out like a year after or a year or two after I left, I think. So yeah,
Fantastic, though. That's really amazing to me.
yeah.
Now, when you had your team, or maybe the team that you know is there now, um, was there any concern over ergonomics or over repetitive use injuries that you might have been incurring? Obviously, the football team's got trainers, the basketball team's got
Yeah.
weightlifting coaches. What about anything like that start to come together at Boise State at the time you were playing?
When I was playing, I don't know that we had any formal like version of that. I think really all it was at the time, like Chris or whoever was kind of our coach at the time as well. When he came on, it was kind of just like a thing that they would note and be like, "Oh, you should be like stretching your fingers and stuff like that, obviously. So because you're like, for me, I'm holding a controller, so my hands are like this constantly and like in a certain position for
Right.
long periods of time. And so like that was one thing that was noticed, just like making sure you're stretching out your hands. And like for people who use keyboard and mouse, they're like moving their arms, and I feel like just like this repetitive movement of your arm back and forth as you're moving the mouse really quickly is probably something that they were conscious of. But it wasn't anything that we had like a formal trainer for. I know that professional teams do often have like a nutrition coach and like personal trainers to actually like help with, I don't know if they like help them in concerns with like repetitive motions, I guess, but like just training them to be healthy physically, because I'm sure that helps in reducing repetitive use injuries if they're consistently working out and like eating healthy and stuff like that. So
Yeah, we talked to a physical therapist who was at a university in upstate New York,
okay.
and their institute had formed a team like yours, but the college president asked this woman to evaluate the players and to make sure that they weren't, you know, underperforming. They were keyboard and mouse people,
Mhm.
and they've come up with something of a regimen. She said the hardest part was getting the people to back away from the game in periodic intervals in
Yeah.
order to either just get up and walk, which she said they had demonstrable evidence that it was helped with cognitive skills if you take a break and walk around,
Yeah.
or even as little as 6 minutes, I think she said could help. So, but you never got to that level
Mm.
at Boise State, and to your knowledge, probably not. It'd be interesting to talk to that coach and see what he sees on the horizon. What did you say his name is?
You're talking about the director of
Yes.
Boise State. His name's Chris Haskell, and it's spelled Haskell, I believe.
Who else? Okay. All right. Good. Well, let's talk about you personally. Have you had any? You're are you? I assume you still, for entertainment purposes, play this game and others.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely do. Not as much as I used to, for sure, because now that I've graduated and have a job, I don't have as much time, I guess. But I definitely do still play it a lot. And I think in terms of any strains or anything, I don't really feel it in my hands. I mean, not yet, but I'm sure, I'm sure if I don't stretch them a lot, it might come later on. But also, I mean, it's kind of difficult because I also am a software developer, so I'm like typing and on my computer constantly, even when I'm not playing video games. So yeah, in terms of my hands, I don't really feel it yet, but I think where I have the most strain really is from sitting in a chair for extended periods of time, and like my back and like my shoulders, I guess, or like my upper back. Like I feel like that's where it kind of comes in the most that I would notice, I guess.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
touch your shoulder and show us where you might feel a tightening or a stress.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's really just like back here, like
Great.
I guess in my trapezius, I think is what it's called, trapezius major or something like
Good.
that, but back here.
Yeah,
And then like the tops of the shoulders.
and the tops of the shoulders. Okay.
Yeah.
And have you ever been to physical therapy to talk to anybody about that sort of thing?
No.
Okay. Um, and when you're playing now, this I'm not familiar with these games, but Rocket League, when you're playing, how long does a typical session last?
I think it depends. For me, it's maybe I would say it's usually like an hour to 3 hours, maybe. When I used to play a lot, I could play for like 5 to 8 hours probably if I didn't have anything else going on. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely reduced at this point, but yeah, I think for someone who's playing it a lot and playing it consistently, it's probably not uncommon for it to go for 5 hours or more. So,
Is there a place where you can break? I spoke with a gamer yesterday, and he said each kind of battle lasts maybe 20 to 40 minutes, um, and then the team goes into like a waiting room, and then they start again.
mhm.
Is your game like that as well?
It's similar. So, a lot of competitive like esports games where it's like one team versus another typically you would have your match, and then yeah, you would have a break in between while you're looking for the next match, like in online
Right.
games. And so for Rocket League, it's not 20 minutes. I think the match timer's 5 minutes. Usually the game itself lasts anywhere from 6 to 10, depending on like how many goals are scored, stuff like that. And so 6 to 10 minutes at a time, and there's usually only a minute or two in between games, depending on how fast you like leave the game and search for a new one. So yeah, it's like 6 to 10 minutes in the game, and then a minute or two out of it, essentially.
Well, what do you do if you need to go grab something to eat? What's that? Tell me about that scenario. Do you eat?
Yeah, I mean, if I don't know, it's weird because when you're playing games, I definitely like almost forget that I'm hungry sometimes, and like will not eat. I mean, sometimes if I'm really really hungry, I will go grab food. I'll just stop searching for a game and go grab some food and come back, or eat and then come back, just depending. But yeah, I have noticed that sometimes when I play, like I'll just forget that I'm hungry, and I just don't eat for a little bit, but eventually it always comes back around, and yeah, then I'll just take a break, go grab food and come back. Like it's not something where I can't leave my computer, I guess, especially because the games aren't as long. I know there's games like League of Legends where the matches can be anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour at a time, like one game, so you're constantly playing for that hour basically. So for those it might be a little bit more difficult, I guess, but yeah, for Rocket League it's really not an issue.
And what about bathroom things? Does that kind of move to the back of your mind as well, so that any urgency gets sort of put off because of the extreme concentration that you're playing in game?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. Sometimes like it gets to the point where you can't wait anymore, and like you have to go at that time. But I think being so focused on the game definitely kind of puts that stuff not at the forefront of your mind. So you're not really thinking about it, and sometimes you will forget about it. So I would say, yeah, it's definitely possible to not go, I guess, like immediately because you're just so focused on the game and you don't really think about it. So
Now, when you're playing with teammates, I'm assuming like we are today, you have a headset on, you got a microphone,
yeah,
and you are having communication with your team players,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You guys go in and out. I don't mean to say just guys because I know that it's both men and women are in this sport.
yeah.
Um, do you leave the game and come back to the game in groups? Do you say, hey, we're going to go over here into this waiting room and then we're going to play this next match? Or is
Mm.
somebody a team captain that decides that? Tell me about that for a second.
So you're saying, like, are you saying for like a tournament, or just like generally if you're like playing together just for fun, or what do you mean
Well,
exactly?
okay, let's talk tournament because that's really what got me interested in the fact that there
Okay.
were these tournaments.
Yeah, so typically the way a tournament works, at least for Rocket League, and I think it's similar for most games, because you can create, they're typically called just like a party. Essentially, it's like you invite these other, like your teammates, and they would join your party. So then that way, anything that you join for a game, it's going to take everybody that's in your party with you. And so on tournament days, typically the team captain, so like I was the team captain for Rocket League, so I would invite my teammates, they would join me, and then we would have a website that would basically tell us like this is the team that you're playing, this is the lobby information. So it'd be like the username and the password for the lobby. You enter that to join it. And then once everybody's in the lobby, you actually start the game. Like you just click like to join your sides, and then the game will start, and then you play the match. And what was cool about the website that we used, it actually was able to essentially get the information from the game lobby, so it would know who won, and you would also report the scores as well, just as like a secondary validation thing. But the website actually knew like what team won and what team lost, and so the team that won would move on to the next position in the tournament,
Mhm.
and then the other team would either be out of the tournament or go to the losers bracket if there was one. And yeah, so
So this
yeah, in terms
website,
of that, it's oh, go ahead.
this website would kind of keep data, and it's independent of the game software itself. It's like an
Yeah,
app that overlays the data.
yeah, no, it's like a oh geez, completely separate organization that runs it, and I guess they just integrate with the game to grab the lobby information, and it'll tell you like, oh, this is the score and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty cool.
What did you say was the name of that company? Did you say Tesla, like a car?
Oh no, so TESPA, TESPA, that was the college one, which those act like for the TESPA tournaments, we actually had to report the scores ourselves. Like both teams had to, and I guess that was probably just to make sure that one team isn't like lying that they won or lost or something like that. And so for TESPA, we had to manually report, but the one that automatically did it was this website called smash.gg. It is the one that actually will pull in the scores automatically from your game lobby for you. And they do not only Rocket League tournaments, but they do like Super Smash Bros. Tournaments, and there's a few other ones, but I've only ever done Rocket League tournaments. So
You have to pay to join these tournaments?
some of them do have like entry fees, but all of the ones I played were just like weekly tournaments that were free, and they had like $50 to $100 like prizes or whatever. They weren't like huge prize tournaments, but they were just like weekly fun ones basically.
Well, this is really quite fascinating to me. I want to send you just a little stretch band and with a door anchor so
Okay.
that when you get to stand up, there's a couple exercises you can do that'll help that shoulder pain. And all is related to your posture.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'll tend to be forward head postured as you're
Hmm.
kind of keeping an eye on things.
Yeah,
And
for
then,
sure.
that head weighs about the same as an 11, 12-pound bowling ball. And as soon as you get it off center, everything is recruited up in your shoulders to try
Yeah.
to hold it in place. And those need a little strengthening. Doesn't sound like you got any finger issues. That's good news.
Yeah.
Uh,
At least
the,
that I know of.
yeah, the shoulder work that you get some repetitive stress in your shoulder. And do you have an Apple Watch?
Yeah, I do.
We're trying to investigate. There's an accelerometer, I think is the word, and in there, and also a gyroscope.
Hmm.
And we're looking into. There's a simple exercise where you put your hand straight on front, put your thumb up, like a hitchhiker's thumb,
Yeah.
and then you just raise it up um, as far as you can until you hit pain,
Mm.
and then bring it down. And a person can do these in a short period of time, like in a break.
Okay.
And it promotes blood circulation in the shoulder. The tendons that are called the rotator cuff tendons are really thick and fibrous, and they don't get much blood circulation. So you got to move
Yeah.
in order to get that circulation going. And this is the least likely to be an aggravating movement if it's out front with the thumbs up. There's also a sac up in here called the bursa sac, and the bursa contains oil for that joint. And it has to move too in order for your joint to get oil.
Mm.
And I'm interested in seeing if we can do something either with cell phones, which all have a lot of these devices in them, or
Yeah.
watches, to kind of give little reminders to players that, hey, we gotta move,
Yeah.
and stay out of trouble. I'm told that some of the professional players are aging out at like 26 because repetitive stress is starting to cut into their ability to play for extended periods. So
Yeah.
that's what we want to investigate and see if we've got something that we can help with.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool. I know, yeah, my watch will it has like the thing where it tells you like, oh, you need to stand because you've been sitting for a long time or whatever. But yeah, I'm sure you could do something like that where after a certain amount of time you remind them to get up and do those motions. And then you could detect that they're actually doing it properly, I'm sure, as well, and kind of get some information from that as well. So
What kind of software do you write?
so I do a lot of web development stuff. So at my current job, it's all web development. I do a lot of mobile development, just like side project stuff. That's kind of where my interest is, I guess, is mobile apps. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, Issiac Torrero, thanks for joining us today. It's
yeah.
been interesting to peer into your life and see what it's like. How many hours a day are you playing right now?
It definitely varies a lot. It's funny because Steam, the one like the software that actually like you can basically buy all these games and like run them on your computer. It'll tell you how many hours you have in the past 2 weeks. And I think most recently when I looked, I only had like, I think it was like 3 to 5 hours in the past 2 weeks, which isn't very much for someone who used to play a lot. But I
Uh-huh.
think it's anywhere from 5 to 10 in a 2 week span, probably. So,
And they say that you gamers who have headsets and microphones and all that did very well in the pandemic. That the people that got isolated and didn't talk to anybody were worse off. But people who were in games with other team members and had conversations and picked up with them regularly developed a real social network that they think is going to live on. Does that resonate with you at all?
yeah, I definitely think that video games give you a pretty good opportunity to, I mean, just meet a bunch of people. Like I have a few people that I play with. One of them's from Arkansas. I have another one in Arizona, and like I've known the guy from Arizona for, I mean, since Rocket League came out. So I guess it's been like 6 years at this point, like that I talk to him consistently. And like I've never met him in person, but I still consider him a pretty good friend, relatively, for anyone that you've never met in person. So it's pretty cool. I like the fact that you can just meet anybody from not anywhere necessarily, because you're not playing with anybody from like across the world, but anyone in the United States, basically, or Canada or something like that. It's pretty cool.
Thank you so much for joining us, and
Yeah.
we'll keep track of your story. See how things go.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.